game changed, yeah.
Welcome to the show, Matty Marshall. We have a big event coming up here in just a couple weeks, and going to be touching base. There's obviously a big event going on right now overseas, which we'll kind of be covering all the bases there. Talk about that in the lead up to the Windy City Major, and there's a lot of cool stories that are happening in professional paintball. We got 20 pro teams. There's 200 pro players. And I'm excited to have this conversation with our guest today. It's Demetri Ninios, and he has just had an amazing career. He was a young phenom that came up as a teenager and made it, I heard about him before I saw him. He's had this amazing career. He's currently on San Antonio X Factor. And we're going to dive into the weeds. The purpose of the show is to kind of, look behind the scenes and have really long form conversations with some of the best and the brightest that we have in our sport, and have some serious conversations about stuff. We, talked about a lot of interesting things with Ryan Greenspan and Ryan Gray. In the last one, we had a very in-depth conversation with Justin Rabikoff. If you haven't seen those shows, go check them out. Talked about anxiety and, being the tip of the spear for the sport, how hard that is. And Meter Ninios and San Antonio X Factor, I feel with everything that's happened, have really not got the shine that they deserve. And that's what we want to shine a light on today. So make sure to go to MajorLeaguePaintball.com. That's where all the shows are going to be happening now, as we had the transition from Go Sports over to Major League Paintball, as we're trying to make this push for our sport. And yeah, man, fourth event's going to be an interesting one. So we're going to get into the weeds here today with Meter Ninios, who I've been watching for a long time. Let's bring Meter in here. So Meter, man, I've been watching your career for a long time, bud. And it's been fun, because you were one of those guys that I heard about before I saw you. And that's when I know we got a potential great on our hands, is when I start hearing, oh, you guys should check out this kid Meter from, he's playing for this team right now and he's traveling and he's doing all this. And we've discussed this before in previous shows. And I know you get on different shows and talk about it, but, I just kind of want, in case people are new to the game and people don't understand, the trajectory you've had, it's been fascinating. You really have had this really interesting road, and I just wanted to go through because I went back and was doing my homework, and I was checking, and I was like, okay, so starting off with X Factor 13, 14, then you go to, because you played for a ton of teams before you kind of went back to the boys. Yeah, but so that's why this is what I want to pick your brain about. So you start with X Factor. Best finish was third, Dallas in 14. And then you go to AC Dallas, only spent a couple events with them before you went to Infamous for a couple seasons, and then to the Ironman. But the best finish with Infamous was a first place. So you got your, first pro win with Infamous, and that was a really cool, that's the last time the Infamous won a tournament, then different story there with Infamous and how they've, Travis Lemansky has rebuilt that roster. Then you go to the Ironman in 2017, best finish there was fourth. And then you go to Shock for a cup of coffee, essentially, before, then going back to X Factor. And but you've been on X Factor now for a long time. And you were one of the big stories. Everyone is kind of always looking at that next up. Okay, who's the next up and coming? Who's the next Oliver Lang? Who's the next, whatever, just, pick out of a hat, whichever up and coming, front aggressive dude. But you've kind of really carved out this niche for yourself on X Factor. So before we jump into the bracket, talk about the upcoming tournament, what's going down in Chicago in a couple weeks, 13th through the 15th. Again, check it out at MajorLeaguePaintball.com. But I just wanted to kind of, go back a little bit. And because, now that you've had time to sit on it and think on it for a long time, because you did go kind of like, all right, well, where's my home? What's my role? How am I, where am I going to kind of fit in here? And then, but you've been on X Factor for years, we're talking 2018, so it's been a long time now that you've been on San Antonio X Factor. Do you have any clarity on that journey? I mean, what lessons did you learn from that journey? That's kind of my first question.
Well, I'll start off with saying it's great to be here and thank you for having me. Takeaways on the journey, man. I mean, it's been one for sure. But I think the key takeaways is always just being, kind of selective with where you're going to be. And that doesn't always mean like on the best team or with your friends or anything like that. For me, from day one, my priority was, literally day one, I wanted to go pro, and I wanted to be like a top pro player at the age of like 10. And it took me a long time to get even to the pro level. So my journey started as far as like carving it out, like way, way, way back, divisionally. I'm from North Texas, Dallas, and when I was coming up, everything kind of fell apart as far as our region, and we didn't have any divisional teams to really like strive to be on, or when you could be on that team, it would implode. So kind of early on, I had to find my way and network through this paintball labyrinth. And it didn't really stop even when I went pro. I went pro with X Factor. Um, and like I said about being selective, I just felt like I wasn't in the right environment for me at the time. And that's when I initially made the departure to AC Dallas. AC Dallas, it was really just a relationship kind of gone sour, and knowing I needed to get out. And then, going to Infamous has its own story. But long story short, with all of these, is I was just trying to be in the right environment for me, and where I could thrive and where I could find myself being successful. And each one, I mean, we could talk for like hours about each one, but bottom line was, if I wasn't in the right group, or if they didn't have the same intentions on winning, or practicing was like a hurdle, then I just realized I needed to go somewhere else to where I could go play and be successful and be the quality player that I, want to be.
As far as, because there could be some people listening to this now that are wondering, hey man, is it time for me to make the move to the next team? Like there's no rules there. It's not like,
so
if this
tricky.
is happening, you should do this. Yeah, it's obviously it's very tricky and it's very contingent upon the situation. But is there any kind of overall principles that you could give as far as advice on that journey? Because people tune in and they watch the Pro League, or they watch, WNXL, NXL, Europe, whatever. They're watching, the tip of the spear, the best in the world in that given, whatever it happens to be demographically. But there's thousands of paintball players that play this in the regional events and play in local tournaments. And there's just, you get on a team when you can, and there's different, whether it's your friend or somebody brought you in or whatever, there's so many different ways. But just, is there any rule you could kind of, or again, principle you could kind of give to somebody as far as that advice?
For sure. I mean, I think no matter what division you're playing, pro or not, paying, whatever, you're still paying with your time. And I think that's the thing that kind of people get confused with, as far as like, I can't leave this team because I'm loyal to this situation, or I'm, it's free here, or it's easier here, I get playtime here. It's like, at the end of the day, you got to realize, or really recognize, what you do this for. And is your current environment setting you up to, accomplish that? Are you even accomplishing what you want to do with this, or are you just wasting time? And it can even be in healthy situations. Like, you can be on a good team and getting your spins, but maybe you just want to be playing more paintball, and or vice versa. It's really dependent on that. But if you think about paying with your time versus paying with your dollar, and kind of, that should be like the first flag of, maybe I'm not happy in this situation, or maybe, it's worth pursuing this tryout, or, just experimenting. If you leave on good terms, you more than likely can come back. And that's like rule probably number one if you're leaving. But I just think that's a major oversight that people get from like playing this game, because you only have so many years to play it. I mean, you have a long time to play it, thankfully. Like, this is my 20th year playing it, and I feel like I got 10 more to go. But if I was in a situation where I just wasn't really happy, I mean, I'm watching the sand go through the hourglass, I got to make sure I'm getting my money's worth, my time's worth.
Can we talk about that a little bit? Paintball is aging up. When, a while ago, and history is important when you look at the, it's like one of the conversations I want to have with you is the meta, the overall strategy that is working in the professional league. And right now, currently, we had J-Rab on talking about this quite at length, about Legion and how they approach the game, how he approaches the game. But it is coming, and this is not, like I see this when I've been coaching some teams here. You see this down in the divisions too, and it's with the way the game is played, the guns aren't shooting as fast and as how X ball evolved. But and then with Dynasty's preeminence, and I just, again, it's important to talk about. Some people are like, oh, if it's not a California team, then, Matty doesn't give him props. I literally have a Texan on here right now, and I love X Factor. But the thing is that we have to talk about what is actually happening. And the fact that the old guys are still really good is kind of is interesting. Why do you think that is? What is it about the sport and the chess match of at every level? Obviously, you've been pro now since you were a young, teenager. So you've had this entire journey to kind of think about this, and you're currently, on the third ranked team overall for the season. Why is that the case?
Oh, as far as the same teams being successful, a lot of it's the order of operation. I mean, if you had a team who was set up as well structurally as Dynasty or Russian Legion, there could be an argument for, they could come in and make a splash early. But when you go, you zoom in, you look at the players, it's definitely coming down to an experience thing. Just knowing, you shoot the wide guy, you need to get to position to hold the wire and hold the outside edge, make sure nobody can fill out. And once you get that down to like a pretty well-known situation, then it's kind of rinse, repeat with the layout. And then until Sunday, and then Sunday is a whole nother game where you gotta keep playing the same pace, but also understand it's going to slow down. So that takes some years for players to realize. But if you combine those two things, I think anybody can have a chance. That's the beauty of our sport. But you don't really see that because you don't have these new teams or new players with all the knowledge. But I think we're going to start seeing that gap being reduced in the future with all this content being out there, all the pros helping all the younger teams and players. And then, like I said, just overall knowledge being more readily available to people, because these things were gate kept for a long time, and there's still a bit of it being gate kept, but it's not nearly the same as it used to be.
Do you think it's because, when you look as far as the, paintball is one, like it requires a certain amount of physical competency. Obviously, you got to be able to move bunker to bunker, and the better you can do that, the better things are easier it's going to be for you to prevail. But at the end of the day, it really does come down to decisions, and it's not, no games end 5-on-5 unless there's 7 seconds left, and it's, we're going into overtime. And so as the bodies whittle down and the decisions are being made within the context of, the point spread, the layout, the time, it's all comes down to what decisions you make. And yeah, your body has to make that shot, but you can still do that at 42, obviously, apparently. And so it comes down to those decisions, but it's the repetition, it's time, And one of the things I did want to talk to you about is that, you've transitioned when you first came up, and I heard about you before I saw you. I'm like, phenomenal young attacker coming out of Texas, went to the Carolinas, and, and you had a cool name. It's like with baseball, back in the day, like go Google old school baseball names. It's hilarious. But paintball was like the first time I saw the X Factor guys. I'm like, who's this team from Texas? And then it was like Grayson Goff. I'm like, well, that's a hell of a name right there. Archie Montemayor. I'm like, Jesus, these guys like, are there given names? Is that on the birth certificate? Because that's a hell of a name right there. So yeah, you had, one of those Demetri Ninios. It's like just rolls right off the tongue. But so you started as a fun player, but then now you've transitioned and you play that 2-3 role, and it requires a massive amount of experience because of so many different variables that you have to process as that, you're losing bodies, they're losing bodies, what play were we running? What's the count what's the score? How much time is left? All these things have to be happening in your brain in a split second. Talk to me about that and your transition. Again, you're not old yet, but you are long in the tooth in this game. You are old in this game, but you're not old in body.
Sure.
But I feel like that's one of the reasons that you have been successful as that second attacker. and you are a crucial member of your squad, which we'll get into the squad in a little bit. But, kind of talk to me about that chess match in your head and how crucial that is to success.
Yeah. I attribute playing forever in video games large part of the calculation process, because I really am not even thinking about it. I'm trying to get into flow state from the second I arrive to the paintball field or land wherever the tournament's at. I'm just trying to get everything streamlined in my mind, and then when you go out there and play, all you're thinking about is, how many bodies do we have? How many bodies do they have? Where do we need to be? Are they in the kill spots? Are we in the kill spots? How do I protect the guy in the kill spot? If I had to explain the formula, but honestly, I'm not. I'm really just intuitively going through it because I've seen it a million times, and that's where that experience to tie back into what we're talking about. What separates the newer guys to the 42-year-olds out there winning world championships. It's just being able to see it multiple times and reading what it is. I mean, if I lose Billy or Axel, it's like, okay, I either need to get out wide or I need to take their spot and turn the field. I'm always looking to be turning the field, and that's either advancing really far down the snake, really far down the Dorito side, and just cutting it off, and then working with whatever quadrant of the field is left. And I really just rinse, repeat that. And that's how it happens for me.
Well, it is a pattern. So just real quick, you said kill spot. Define kill spot, and then I kind of want to talk to you about your flow state, because getting in a zone in which your brain is activating all the things that you already currently have experienced in as fast as possible with as little distractions, so you can maximize potential success given the situation, is crucial. But everyone has a different version of that. Everyone gets in a flow state a little bit different. But what do you mean by kill zones? Like, what does that mean to you? He's like, we got to get into kill zone.
Yeah, kill zone or like kill spot would be just like on the layout. And there hasn't been a ton of them lately, but on a layout, a spot that you go to and you're definitely killing people. Like, it's typically, it used to be like a 50 Dorito, 50 snake. Sometimes more so now, it's like going onto their side. But even this year, it's been kind of hard to find the kill spot, just because we have so many bunkers. It's kind of a maze out there. And so modern paintball, you're more so rewarded for just going for it and turning the field and being on their side, and trying to shorten the gap as much as possible. In years past, it was a little different, but now you're just trying to get down their side of the field and eliminate as many variables as soon as you can.
It's interesting too, because a few years ago, the way the game was played at the highest level was that you would kind of be in a situation where you can play defense, you can slow the game down. With the way Legion's playing this year, because Legion has only lost 2 games all season long, and both of their losses have come to Dynasty at the first event. Since then, they're undefeated. So Dynasty's got a pretty good record with them. The rest of the league is 0-18 with a negative 47, 48. That's pretty bad for the rest of the league. And how they've done that is they're pushing the issue. They're playing hardcore offense. They're willing to, and because they lose bodies, and they really don't mind if they lose a body on the break. They will also, the way that they do their game plans, because doing the TV show that we just had, hopefully you guys are able to check it out. We just finished the hour-long version of it. It was cool to, you can only shoehorn so much into a 22-minute long segment when you have that many points.
Yeah.
So it was nice to have an hour-long segment to do, longer conversation, but I want to focus on what we're talking about. But having to, and I always rewatch the games because we also have Road to the Finals coming out from Go Sports, Major League Paintball. And so going back as I was doing, kind of watching these games and taking a lot of notes, they do change their strategy up. If they're losing cars left, they will hold them up. But they will continue to send bodies. They do a good job of sending guys to create threats at different moments, depending on the flow of the game. So it's not just all offense all the time. There's definitely strategy to their game plans, but the overall emphasis is on pushing the issue and getting into what you were talking about, those kill spots. So at that last event, it was that 50 brick in Atlantic City. It was like, got to get a body to the 50 brick, have to have a threat on the D side. Middle kind of sucked. Teams were pushing the middle. The middle was an issue a bit, but it was not the definitive place in the game. It was like what happened on that snake side, and then what happened on the D side. In the middle would every 6 or 7 points play some bit of a factor, but it wasn't. It was
very much a split up field through the middle.
Yeah, it was a distant third place, and not every layout's like that. But Malloy was relentless on that snake side. I mean, he was always omnipresent in that 50 or in the snake. They did a good job of mixing that up. Karslev was a beast, but in that Impact game, which was very close on Sunday, they, Impact shut Karslev down. Impact's in your guys' bracket, and I do want to get a thorough conversation about your bracket and your guys' roster and why. Because I'm basically also want to plead the case to everyone, like, hey, bet on X Factor, dude. I feel like this is a team that's kind of ready to go based on what I've seen out of you guys this year, because you've been in some scraps. But as far as the conversation about how Legion has done as well as they've done with 5 guys, because once you get off that bench, it goes into some very inexperienced players. But that top 5 is elite of elite. Those dudes are all going to be essentially first ballot Hall of Famers. But what are your thoughts on that, man? I mean, you guys have played them a bit. Believe your record. So if we just go through real quick. So X Factor first event. You guys lost to Legion by 1 point because you guys went 2-2 on day 1. And then heading into the second event, Legion knocked you out of the tournament. Another really close game. And then heading into the third event, didn't play them, so you had some experience with this year. They've gotten the better of you, but you guys gave them a hell of a game twice. So, you guys are, really close to the best team out there. Again, listen to just everyone out there. Like, the only team that's beat Legion is Dynasty. That's it. Other than that, no one else has beat them. And the rest of the league is 0-18 with a -47. Like, that's ridiculous. But you guys have in the matches you guys have had, they barely beat you. So I can't really find someone else.
I mean, we should
better to have this conversation.
Definitely. Yeah, we should have definitely, in my mind, beaten these guys in both those games. But the fact of the matter is, we didn't, and we had every equal opportunity to. Our final game, we got we screwed it in overtime and got, I think, 2 penalties in overtime in the finals, which is just, tragic and tragedy. And then the first event, it was a very close game that we let slip away from us. And to be totally honest, it just comes down on to players making better decisions. And if we can make better decisions, we beat them. They made better decisions than us. They beat us. And the way that they're playing with this really hyper aggressive style, it's not like they're just relentlessly like going. They're going with intention and understand, if we push here, it's going to be felt over there, and next point we're going to push over here, and there's going to be an opening over here, and that's just how they're playing it. It's the coins in one hand and really is in the other. But their pace is all together, and that's the biggest difference from when, I think it's going to change, obviously, after this event or this season, where everyone's going to understand that the pace of the field needs to be kind of united, not just like get a guy really far off the break and then have your 2 trail in behind, 40 seconds later. It's like, we get to a spot, we need to take a spot in the middle to make sure, whatever is going on the snake side doesn't escape us, because we're in transition. We're not going to have a guy just looking at the zone from the can 60 yards away anymore, so we're going to need to be in the middle while we're pushing hard in the snake, and then our third body is going to need to match our guy on the snake side really close behind him. And that's just kind of a pace thing that I don't think teams have really taken to heart when they talk about being aggressive. a lot of aggression relies on your one going really far and surviving. And that's kind of a half-baked plan, you know? And I mean, you get more advanced by saying, okay, we'll shoot for your guy. We'll shoot the back center. We'll shoot the shooter shooting at you. But still, I mean, people hit shots with contention all the time. So Russian Legion's just done a really great job of kind of disguising where they're going to hit you from, and even baiting and switching. I mean, really sophisticated, high IQ paintball being played by them.
You had brought up something that's interesting, which I get a lot when I talk to divisional teams, is how close should the two stay to the one? You have that first attacker, and the first attacker, you know, and we have to repeat things because this is just how the game is played, you know. So the first attacker sets the tempo and the pace of the game. If you don't have a first attacker that's taking ground and staying alive and being a threat, you're doomed. And the next step from that, which is actually more difficult from an execution standpoint, is yes, the one is going to have a lot of guns looking at him. He's going to be in a really treacherous situation. He might have to make a secondary move that's going to be treacherous. But the two has to make a lot of really crucial decisions and be engaged in more active gunfights. Because the one, a decent amount of time, is either looking crossfield to shoot a lane. Yeah, they're engaging in closer gunfights. But the two, which is over time, you know, it's the hardest position to play, because if your one dies, you have to become the one. You have to also make hard decisions about like trying to make moves cross field. And when do I do that? Okay, we just lost our entire Dorito side, and I'm still at the 20-yard line Aztec. My front guy's in the 50 snake. What do I do? You know, do I filter out that way? What's the guy in the center do? I mean, you have to be thinking about all this stuff so quickly within the context of 20 seconds. And then the decision that you make, am I going to go, are we just going to push this side because we lost our whole D side? Should I fill across? How many bodies do we shoot? Is that count accurate? So that this is why it's difficult. This is why it's very hard to do this, and why not a lot of paintball teams, period, have ever won. Ever. If you won a paintball tournament at any level, dude, tip of the hat and respect. It is incredibly difficult to win paintball tournaments at any level. I don't care if it's D10 or
it doesn't
pro.
matter.
You know, it's really really hard. It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard in the divisionals because there's 20 pro teams. That's a lot that's 200 dudes. But man, down in the divisionals, there could be more than 20. It could be 35
team. Yeah, division. That's brutal.
Okay, so talk to me about this then.
I've never
won
so you have a situation down there.
Well, you didn't spend much time down there, so it's not like you had a lot of time. But but answer that question for me. And again, it doesn't have to be. There's not really any specific. Okay, well, you have to do this every single time, because that's what makes paintball so difficult. Is it's completely contingent upon what's going down. You know, point spread, what's in front of you, what our bodies are, what the layout looks like. But as layout, just in general, what's that?
Layouts definitely change it, but regardless, I mean, the two, you're here to support your one. Some layouts you're not going to be able to shoot down the wire, you know, if the corner is inset, or if there is no corner, or there's a big brick blocking you from your one. But you need to be in a position to see the field, and because your first his eyes, that's like the first thing that's going on. You need to tell him if he's alone in the snake, or if he's matched up in the snake, or who filled out. All these different things are imperative for that guy to know. If not, then you have a guy on the field who's playing blind. And then second to that, obviously you need to be in a spot to do your best to protect him. But as the game is evolving, at least in the pro division, it's getting really complicated, because it's not as easy as just getting in the snake with your guy and staying on the wire. If you do that with any of the top snake guys, all it takes is for them to get in the snake, come down the wire, snap you out, and then he's going to run your one, who's in between you and their aggression. So that's where it's evolving into, like, you need to figure out what side of the field is the field you want to execute on, and you want to flip the field on. And what I mean by that is you shoot, the two guys out on your side, Dorito or snake side, and then turning onto their side of the field, and then you're trapping them all on, that back right side or that back left side. And and flipping it. And you can do that with the middle guy, because if we're in a field layout where I can't see you, Matty, or you can't see me, you'll be my two. I cross into their side and there's a brick blocking you from me. Now you're out of the game. And so anybody can fill out and just easily dink me out. And that's like a game that we should have won or had won. And so that's when you got to use like all of your teammates, or at least have a plan to use your teammates to, hey, when we get into the 50 and we're ready to cross on their side, you lose visibility, Matty. And so you now need, somebody, our third body, to be in a position to see the snake side or to see the Dorito side and know that that's like our win condition. This is how we're trying to win the field. And the sooner we can identify that, the sooner we can see how it works, how it doesn't work, what we want to happen, what we can't allow to happen, what happens if you die. Is this screwed? Does that leave me on their side with a guy in the middle who is out of the game? So there's a lot of factors, but kind of that checklist of just seeing, what am I doing for my one? Am I protecting him? Can I see everything? If either of those things are no's, you got to figure out something else, or see if you need to bring in a third party to make this side go a little more smoothly more often.
Before we move on and talk about brackets, I got to ask you, because I feel like this is an important conversation that wasn't really addressed a lot up until very recently. But you did come up as a phenom. There was a lot of pressure on you. It was something that you really wanted. You had to go to all these different teams. How did you handle the pressure? Was that something that was easy for you? Did you have any problems with that? Interpersonal relationships?
I wanted all of that pressure, man. I really did. I mean, I dreamt of it. I remember going, whatever, we did our first podcast together after our like 8-hour conversation at Ryan and Scott's old place in San Diego, and your old place. And I remember like I was saying I was going to beat Malloy in the stats because that was like our first year with Paintball Access. So I definitely always wanted it, and it definitely fueled me, still fuels me. But that fuel is definitely different. That when you're young and confident and arrogant, that's like self-made power. And all that pressure. I mean, I was not shy to work. I was not shy to, make sure my skills were up to par at the time. Of course, it wasn't like I was the best player in the world, but I definitely wanted to be, and I definitely thought that I was in my own right. And as long as I can control the things that I can control, then let's go to war, but yeah, I mean, and to be afforded pressure is also a really rare thing that I don't think people should ever cower from. If you have that weight or you have fear, it's like run to it. Run as fast and as far as you can to fear and anxiety and all these things. I promise, no matter what it is, no matter where it stems from, if it stems from a place of not being confident, still push, because you'll break down those barriers and you'll find yourself on the other side of something that you couldn't even conceptualize because you're too afraid or too, whatever ailment it is that you're going through. Because we all experience similar things, just in different ways. Like my anxiety may be your depression, or or a better thing would be my yuck is your yum. So always go towards it, and you'll always surprise yourself, and then years down the road you'll be so proud, or so you'll feel something. There'll be something, but if you don't do anything, there will be nothing, and it'll just be a whole lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Facebook posts. I mean, just sad. Sad. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember that conversation, our long conversation. And I remember coming out of there, I'm like, okay, I got a couple of things from that. I was like, okay, Meter's smart. Meter's definitely got the cocky confidence needed to be elite. Because if you don't have, because I've seen it so many times over the years with different dudes. Because dude, I am old, man. Like I've been doing this for a long ass time, and I've seen, all these dudes come up, and I've had long conversations with them, and I love that. But not a lot of them make it. And so I remember coming out of that thinking like, all right, he's intelligent, he's hungry for it, he's got cocky confidence. Let's see him play. Like he has a good. It's like if I sit there and I got some, really, or like when you're making the ingredients for something, and if you want to cook something that's relatively simple and it has a certain, like, whether it's complex or simple, and you have those ingredients and those are really good ingredients, and then you got a good recipe, okay, there's a really good chance that thing's going to be delicious by the time you make it, right? So I was like, okay, he's got
Absolutely
good ingredients. He's got good ingredients. He has a recipe because I knew who you trained under, and then you kept seeking new recipes essentially for what elite paintball is. Because there's not just one way to do it. I mean, when you look at all these teams, and this is what I want to kind of transition into because I don't have you all night, is that different teams have slightly different recipes for this elite performance. But we've seen these elite performances, and you have one of these teams in your bracket, Impact. So Impact ran 2 lines last event. Haven't really seen a lot of teams run 2 lines. Oh, the other team that has, and this before we do move on, because this has been the one weird anomaly where I was like watching you guys play all year, and I want to talk about your roster too. But your Aftermath game, because you guys played Aftermath. So at the last event, you guys went 1-3 in the prelims, and you beat PB Fit, no problem, 5-2. And then you had a close game against Diesel on Saturday and kind of, I wouldn't say beat up on Revo, but it was 4-1. You guys had that game. So you guys go, 3-1. The one loss was against Aftermath. And Aftermath, at this point, their meta, the way they like to play this game is they like to kind of slow it down a bit. They want to kind of drag you into longer points. They play 2 lines. And so I was wondering, it seemed like an anomaly because your roster is really high powered. You have really experienced and elite 2s. Incredible, going to be Hall of Famers. Colt Roberts is going to be a Hall of Famer. TJ Danner is en route to be a Hall of Famer. Like you guys have great closers. You have a ton of offense. You as a 2, like it's just, I want to transition to going down the roster and then we'll jump into the brackets. But I'm watching this game and I'm like, why is X Factor playing their game? Like on paper, you guys should be beating that team.
Was on that?
Yeah, 1-2. You guys lost 1-2.
Yeah,
on a field that was averaging
so we go into that game
5 or 6 or 7 points. Like it was like
I went into that game.
I was mind boggled, bro.
Points.
I was mind boggled. I'm like, why are they slowing this game down, dude?
Yeah, it was definitely one of those things where we just did exactly what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to play long points with these guys, and that's kind of a talk about pace. We can play any speed style, and we're pretty proficient at either way. But the hard part about that is getting everyone on the same page and at the same pace. And that's kind of the story of that match. I mean, we just went against what we wanted to do and we got punished for it. And there's really nothing, nothing to be said. We found ourselves in a game against the clock where if you lose the point, you have to win, then you're screwed. And that's what we did. And Aftermath got it.
Yeah, it was just it was when I was sitting there kind of going through all the different things I wanted to talk to you about because like you said, our first conversation was, I mean, I don't think it was 8 hours, but it was probably a legit 4-hour conversation. And so I was
Matty,
like, okay,
it was pretty long.
Yeah, it was long.
Definitely
hey, we're both long-winded, Yeah, I mean, hey,
it was one I'll never forget.
Well, people beat me up sometimes about like, hey, Matty's verbose. He talks a lot. I'm like, yeah, dude. Like, first of all, it's my job to talk. Second of all, when we're doing this for other, like, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. But I'm not just going to ask 1 word, 3-word questions to people. We need to have very intricate conversations about things. And even if I'm sitting down and talking to you, and it's just you and me, like, and we're spending our time having a discussion about politics or history or science or the mind, the game, whatever it may be. Like, I'm not trying to bore the person that's sitting across me, and I don't want to be bored either, dude. Like, we're going to have this conversation. Like, let's have a goddamn conversation. So, it's, I just appreciate people like you, bro, and it's cause they're, that's not how it always works. So yeah, I was, So yeah, when I was looking at these things that we could talk about, I'm like, okay, meters a conversationalist. I got to kind of dial this in because we got about an hour. We can go a little bit more than an hour, but I was like, okay, I mean, because like you said, we could literally sit here and we could talk about just what happened at the last event, or just talk about, I don't know, is there a heaven? You and I could probably sit down and have that, a 4-hour conversation about that. So
Behind the
anyway,
paywall. Behind the
but what,
paywall. Get in there.
yeah, yeah, right behind the paywall. But it was kind of one of those things where I was like, man, I was really wondering because I watched that game and I'm like, this was such an anomaly for the year. It just didn't. And now in for the year, but you guys can play. You sometimes, occasionally, X Factor, and I don't know if this is an intention. This is, I guess, the big question: was that intentional? Were you like, okay, let's go out and play some long points? Because you guys have definitely been involved in some long games before. The past few years.
We totally
and
did
I just
what we did not want to do. We totally did not want to play long points. We found ourselves in a situation where it's like, you hold on to a point too long to try and win it. Even if you win it, there's still 2 minutes, and now you have to still score, a point or so. Anyway, we just played a game against a team who was going to lock it up, and that's what Aftermath's really good at. They take like the back five more often than not, and they try to figure out how to be so set up and so zone oriented, where nothing can kind of get past them without them seeing it. And once they see it, they can adjust their bodies to, protect themselves from that threat. And they just kind of keep moving down the field that way. And yeah, so they got the best of us.
Well, let's kind of transition into the Aftermath conversation right now. You have Aftermath again. Are we foreseeing another 2-1 game here? Is that going to be? Because I know and Ryan Brand I love Ryan Brand. He's so smart. He's been such an amazing coach for you guys. But if I was him, I would be like, under no circumstance are we getting suckered into playing a 3-point game. Okay, on paper, we're better than these dudes. We've been real. They're like, hey, yes, they've had some decent performances, but if you look at how we've done, and you look at our roster and how successful this roster has been, under no circumstances are we getting into a 2-1 game again. We're going to play 6 or 7 points. We haven't, we'll see what the layout looks like. So maybe it'll be a little slower. I don't know. But I'm just wondering, do you foresee another 2-1 game out there? Is you just going to play it as it lies? Or,
I mean
give me an insight.
We will definitely play it as it lies, but we don't want to be doing that. I mean, with the roster that we have currently, and it goes back to the pace thing. I mean, if we have Axel and Billy out there, they're not on the same pace of playing this like super long-winded game. That's not what they want to do, and that's not what we should do to support them. We should be going. That's the story. We just need to be more aggressive and play to the quality of our ones, and definitely emulate a faster style similar to what the Russians are doing. But it comes back to being full paced across the board and understanding how to make it happen. I mean, you play with one guy going into Aftermaths. We go deep into the field against Aftermath. That guy's gonna have to play 2 or 3 people. It's not reasonable to put that pressure on that one individual who's that far down the field. We need to be supporting our guy and making it so much less of a shot hitting game and more of a, we blew the side and we fucked him up game. That's the style we need to be playing.
I couldn't agree more, brother. I feel like that's the road to greatness for you guys, especially based on what's been happening. So, you look at Legion and how well they've done this year, and we were discussing it earlier, but they've been hyper aggressive. They've been very intelligent on changing play calls when they need to hold guys up. But even when they hold guys up, they are still on a secondary. So if Karzlev's being held up on the D side, he's going to either post up and then launch, or he's going to attack, shoot a lane off the break, and then launch. Malloy, same thing there. And that's worked out. Kirill in the middle, depending on the middle, similar situation, right? And then you have now J-Rab and Sergey as the guns. And then the other thing that I do want to touch on is that, kind of how J-Rab's been playing, and we've been seeing this kind of change a little bit too, but I kind of want to, dive into your roster a bit. But the sense is that so when I look at, okay, so that's how Legion has gone undefeated except for Dynasty this season. And then you look at Impact, and when they play really well, it's a little bit more, it's the same thing. They have a ton of threats, and they definitely want to push the issue, but they play a little bit more scramble, and they shoot a lot of bodies on the break. Well, like the equation, again, the principle is shoot bodies on the break, like shoot more than you get shot, get into those kill zones, or those kill spots, as you were talking about, the places that are the most important bunkers on the field, typically out wide, a D3, a 50-yard line on the D side, a snake 3, 50-yard line, whatever. It's going to change. Middle sometimes is going to be a huge thing, but figure out what those spots are. Like, where are the most potent positions on the field? How do we get there safe? And no matter what, even if we have 3 and they have 4, we still, if we're in those spots and they're not, and they go conservative, this is going to work. So the teams having the success, Legion, Dynasty, Impact, Damage, similar thing. If you look at how Damage played this last event, so Damage, did not do well in Texas, and then they show up and they were, because and I've said this to Joey when we have Joey on the show, because he's like, oh, you guys say we play conservative. I'm like, yeah, maybe 4 years ago when you guys were, but we say you take good spots and then you play smart. So that's kind of that, conversation that all the best players in the world are having right now, is that, all right, where's the style at right now? What's working? How's this layout? What do we need to do? Who's the best? Like, these are the conversations that are being had amongst the best players in the world. And then you have to try to make that actually applicable in the real world at the actual time that it's happening. But, and this is what I'm saying, that each team has a slightly different way to get that accomplished, but it's all getting accomplished. But let's look at this roster, dude, in case, people, again, with X Factor currently sitting at 3rd, it's going to be really, even if you guys win the next 2 events, depending on how Legion does, it would be tough to win the series, but you guys can completely change the narrative if you show up and start whooping everyone's ass at the next couple events, and you have the roster to do it. So, you're looking at Cody Bayless, so you lose Parrish last year. Cody Bayless is incredibly competent. That dude is a force of nature over there on the D side of the field. He's hyper aggressive. He's super athletic. He's super fast. TJ Danner is, I wouldn't say he's aging like a fine wine, because he's not that old yet, but my God, dude, like, TJ Danner had that 1.5-year knee injury and came back and has just been winning low body situations. He shoots body on the break. Like, I look at TJ when he's playing and I'm like, he almost barely ever makes some sort of mistake where in my head, I'm like, why did you do that, TJ? It's almost constantly like, yep, that was a great move. Oh, wow. That was perfect timing. He made it there clean. Oh, he just won a 1-on-2, like, it's just insane how good TJ Danner is getting. He's a hell of a gunfighter. Axel Godin is arguably the best snake player ever to come out of Europe. He's played on top teams, and here in the States, like that, talk about a force of nature. That dude's a wrecking ball. Then you got Billy Bernacchi. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. You as well too. You are another dude where I'm like, Meter, why'd you do that? I don't really, doesn't happen that often, because you're almost always in the right position at the right time. And then you got Colt Roberts. That's another first ballot Hall of Famer. And then you just picked up Tim Stetzel, who I've been hearing so much about for probably 4 years now, but he had to figure out his, regular life and get to himself in a position where he could come and play and dedicate himself to pro paintball. Then he blew his shoulder out. So it's been a while since we've, see Tim get a lot of spins, but that doesn't, if he's healthy, like, and he's had some injuries or had to get some stuff, it doesn't matter. Like, once you have this ability, it takes a cataclysmic thing for you to go to here, It's just like, it really does. So when I look at this roster, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of options here. And then also Matt Jackson, Matt Jackson's, he's not only incredibly impressive, but Matt Jackson's one of those, when Matt Jackson's on, he's almost unstoppable, because he can do it all. He can play the 1, he can play the 2, he can play the 3. He's when he's having a good day, at least from what I've seen out of him over the years, and I've watched every professional point that he's played in the NXL, I'm like, wow, that dude is insane. So your roster's really, really good. It's no surprise to me that you guys have gone, I obviously just got the team together, 8th in Vegas, 2nd. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, other than I know I can have a really good conversation with Meter Ninios, was that I was like, man, I kind of feel that you guys, with all the stuff that's been happening, is that your 2nd place finish, because it was like, okay, we can't play the event in Texas because of the weather. We play it on Thursday. We got the ESPN show. all this stuff happened. Legion's won 2 events in a row, but I'm looking at, I'm going watching these games and I'm thinking like, wow, X Factor, even though they've made some mistakes in some of these situations, they got the performances have been really good. The results have been really good. You've been in some scraps. You've learned some hard lessons. You got a hell of a coach, a hell of an owner. I'm like, dude, the future is so bright for X Factor. So how's the vibe on the squad right now? Because I know at this point, are you guys, I wouldn't say satisfied because you haven't won, so I know you're not satisfied yet, but how's the vibe on the team?
Vibe is great. I mean, you just gave the roster, and I've never been on a team where I've been so I guess just I'm not even worried about our individuals. Everyone's super competent. Everyone does the work. Everybody wants to be on this team, and everyone wants the same result. We just need to just kind of really show up together and have a solid plan that we all agree with, kind of hopefully at the beginning of a tournament versus developing what we're trying to accomplish like mid tournament. Or what I hate the most is when people have the answers at the end. It's like, I'm not a fan of that. I understand, looking back, you have a little better perspective. I mean,
how do you fix that?
Fucking trying shit. Everybody has ideas. Everyone's been in the game for a long time. And you see this with hyper experienced players and teams where they can find themselves not speaking up because somebody else is already doing it, or maybe not, coming to the box and saying, hey, I want to go to this spot because I think if I get here, that's going to open it up for you on that side, and blah, 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 blah. All of the game jargon. I think as you develop and play and have been developed, you just kind of let other people get it out. But I think what's really important is everybody say their piece, and we're going to get to the right and wrong ideas. But the reality is there's no wrong ideas. You can play a layout one way the entire time, show up Friday and be like, holy shit, we played this wrong, And so at practice, I think and this goes for anybody, I mean, if you're not winning or you feel like it's just you're right there, but you're not hitting it yet, you got to explore more options at the practice and be like kind of well-versed in, 30% of every way this field can be played than being 100% concrete on one way it's going to be played. Because guess what? Fields are different. Paint can be different. You throw refs into the mix. I mean, there's so many variables, and it's not like any of these 20 teams in today's game can't, make a run for something. I mean, you can say, yeah, this team shouldn't do it, or this blah, blah, blah. Well, bottom line is all these games are close. In a team who has a field figured out a little bit more, or just a specific play just figured out a little bit more and a little more fine-tuned than the other team who's just going to go do their basic defense play, and you have the answer to break that open, then that's when you see an aftermath. Brooklyn Bears, a Revo, squeak in and beat a team that they shouldn't beat in a quarterfinal, semifinal game. I see we're getting a little laggy.
Oh, no, I still got you. No, I was just looking real quick because I wanted to double check this. Every loss you guys have had this year is by 1 point. You guys have not gotten blown out, period. Like, it's every loss you've taken has been a battle. You've lost. The games you've lost have been to really good teams. Because, even Aftermath, dude, like Aftermath has had some really good performances. And the parity in the league, as we always say, because it's the truth. And again, if I repeat myself sometimes, it's because that's actually what's happening, and repetition is message, and people need to know it. So it's like, yeah, dude, the parity is really good right now. So, you've beaten the teams you're supposed to beat, other than, I would say, Aftermath. And yeah, it's just, I just think that you guys have a really good chance, and it's good that the vibe, and I love that you're like, hey, we got to figure this out quicker. Because it seems to be one, and again, you guys have had no blowout losses. You've had some really good performances. You've made it to the finals. Like, it's only 3 events.
I just feel like our spread isn't good enough. We should be like just dominating teams. Not every team, not every game you should be like blowing people out of the water, but we should be blowing some people out of the water. And I feel like a lot of it's just like I said, I mean, it all kind of ties into, it's a multifaceted thing what I'm talking about. But if, you have more people in this sense, I want more hands in the kitchen. I don't think that's said often, but when everyone's a Michelin star chef, I think we should all be talking about what we want to do and how we want to execute and how this should go down. And hey, it didn't work this way because you weren't here shooting that. Like, no, that's what we need to do. So that's the piece that I'm looking for, and that's the piece I'm bringing this weekend, next weekend, and Chicago weekend.
Well, as we were texting about, and then I want to get to the bracket and get your thoughts on a couple other squads. You're right. You have your spreads have not been great. If you look at the other top teams. So the fact that you're sitting in third place, so it's Legion, Heat, X Factor, Dynasty. Those are the top four, and your spreads have been +5 at the last event, +4 even in your second place finish. And then say it was like a +3 at the first event. So you're winning a lot of games, but you're having a lot of battles. However, that is a blessing in a way, because you've had to figure out things on the fly within the context of those points with this badass high-powered roster that you have with a ton of offense and threats and vets. We always say, dude, it's like you got to have threats. You have threats. You have threats that are vets, so that's huge. And so when I kind of look at the upside for X Factor, and also you guys play in Texas for a lot, and it's really hot as hell when you guys play. So you guys are tough. So when I look at kind of how you guys have trained, your leadership, the guys you have on the squad, their experience, and then all of these different intangibles that all have to kind of coalesce, and the battles that you've been going through, I'm like, okay, one, they got a really good chance to do well in these next two events. Two, if they can keep this roster together, it's going to be really, the future is very bright. If you can keep this roster together for 2025, depending on what happens, it's always tough in the offseason, but it's just that I just feel like it's an upside trend right now for you guys because of all the wars that you've been in. Because you're right, Meter, you guys are not beating teams up. You're winning games solidly. You've lost a few. Every one that you've lost is by one, and you have these little small point spreads compared to some of these other teams. So let me ask you about Impact. Because when you're talking about a team that is whooping that ass, like Impact at the last event was pretty awesome, dude. They went to +10 overall. They had some mercy rule wins. Impact was playing two lines too. They're in your bracket. Yeah. So let's kind of switch to the bracket. They've got a ton of depth, so much so that they went two lines and went pretty deep. And they're hungry too, because, they went 15th, 6th, 15th, 3rd for Impact. They're hungry for another win. Not too long ago, a couple years ago, they won 2 in a row. That's a team that's going to be, that people are going to have to contend with. When I have had these different conversations with different guys the past few weeks, leading up to this event, in your guys' bracket, it's almost unanimous, X Factor, Impact, because these conversations we have when we talk about brackets, it's like, okay, who are going to be the top 2 teams that move on, and are we going to catch a wild card out of that bracket, because we take 10 out of the 20. So it's you guys, Impact, Aftermath, AC Diesel, Notorious. This is all going down on MajorLeaguePaintball.com, 13th through the 15th of next month. And so, yeah, let's talk Impact real quick. What are your thoughts on Impact?
It's a great organization. They got a bunch of pressure on them. That's just the way it kind of works over there. And pressure makes diamonds, or you get yelled at by Bart and Dave. They don't want that. So, it's definitely a team who, it's going to be a formidable match. We've played them a lot. We've had we beat them, they beat us, history. So it's really anyone's game. That's one of those games where you're like, let's see the layout and let's see how each team's going to try and posture up on this. Are they going to try and, with the roster they have now, it's kind of an interesting one where it's like, I want us to have a dense snake layout to play them, just because we got Axel, Billy, and then me in there, or Timmy, Axel, Timmy, Billy, however it plays out. And they're going to be having to make a tough decision by putting JC in there or Zupa. Both promote, great play. Both of them have had killer events, but the next guy behind that, and Urena, excuse me. So it's, just a pretty even setup there, but still they got to pull one of those guys to one of the other sides. And then that's where I feel like it's pretty strong for us, because we have Cody Bayless, Timmy, TJ on the other side. So it's like, we're really playing a game of matchups, and it's really fun to see personalities match up and see who wants it in one of those, like, title games, so to speak. And to start a tournament with one of those matches is always a good time, because you really don't know. You have no clue how it's going to break down. First match of the event's always kind of
Yeah, for sure. Well, you haven't played them yet this year, so that's also interesting, because they haven't played. Yes, historically the battle between, as X Factor, one of the top teams, Impact obviously one of the top teams. You guys haven't played each other this year. You guys' roster changed a little bit, so that's,
and we have two of their old players.
Yeah, so exactly. There's a little, it's again a little bit of a grudge match. Their rosters changed too. I don't know. To me, when I'm looking at the stories, I'm a sucker for a story. It's my job to tell some stories. That's a really good story right there. So what happens there is going to be interesting. And then Aftermath, that's the third seed in your bracket. With Aftermath, they're currently sitting a 12th, and really good event at the first one. Really good showing at World Cup last year, but this year 4th, and then a 17th and a 14th. So not ideal. So they missed 2 Sundays, but you guys were the only team that they beat. They went -3 at the last one, 1-3, but they beat you guys, and you guys are the 3rd ranked team. So if I'm X Factor, I'd be like, hey, we beat these guys last time we played them. It's pretty easy to pump Aftermath up at this situation to play you guys, and then you guys draw them again. But but they also run 2 lines. We don't know. Impact doesn't always run 2 lines, but they decided to run 2 lines last time, and it worked out pretty good. They got pretty deep, top 4, a 3rd place. But for this one, what do you think? With Aftermath, they're definitely going to run 2 lines. I'm almost positive. I would definitely bet on it. But they did beat you guys the last time you played. But to me, I feel like that was a strategic error on your guys' part to not play more points.
Yeah, I feel that was a self-inflicted loss. Not to take anything away from them, but it's like, if we played it the way we said we wanted to play it and executed on how we discussed it before and during the match, I think it is a different story. But they play a lot of paintball, and that's like a major kudos to them. It's just, unfortunately, similar thing to like an AC style or even a New York Extreme style of 2 years ago. If you play a really low risk, like total risk adverse style, you have a ceiling. Like you just do, and you can have a couple good tournaments maybe, but no wins. And it just doesn't take that long for really talented teams to figure out that Rubik's Cube of, oh, these guys are just playing like super low risk and shooting gaps. Okay, how do we break this? Historically, paintball, it's like, okay, if these guys are just going to cross up, let's go in the middle and, edge a guy out, shoot him, and then this whole side opens up. Now get in the snake and shoot the Dorito guy looking cross. That's like a simple equation. With these layouts being as, complex and hectic as they are, it kind of makes it difficult to get these ticks out of position. But the first thing is to recognize the game that you're playing and say, okay, we got to open it up early. And hey, no matter what, we're going to play it fast, and we're just going to, keep swinging until we find out where the soft spot is. And then if you open it up and you win, then they're screwed. And I think that's the major misstep. And I bet if we go back, I'm probably sure we lost the first point in that match. And that's kind of where they get you right where they want you. They drag you out to the deep water, and now you're, in a, it just takes them hitting a good shot. And then you're having to fight 2 or 3 guys on your side alone. And that's going to do well. But on a layout where that isn't the setup, it's not looking good with that tactic. So they need to start figuring out how to be more offensive and how to create offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all there too. And I'm going to the ASG to help coach the Narcos this weekend. So nice. If I see him, I'll probably tell him the same thing. But let's talk about Diesel. So Diesel's again down in the 4th tier here. That roster's ridiculous. Talk about repeating ourselves. We've had the same conversation about Diesel with so many different people throughout the years, or the past couple of seasons since they've been around. I mean, you're a Texan. You know these dudes, and you know all their imports too. You know the guys that aren't Texans on that team. Mark Johnson. Oh, yeah. Help diagnose this for me, Meter, because I'm still a bit puzzled. We had Ryan Gray. We talked to him about it a little as well too.
The culture, man. Their culture is just not it. I know they're working on it, and I know, I love a lot of those guys. Like, put paintball aside and being a competitor. I mean, a lot of these guys are some of my closest friends and lifelong friends. I've known Mark Johnson since I was 12 years old. So, and then Kyle and Mouse are some of my, really good friends. And Ryan Gray was my old divisional coach. And I know Ice and BJ, and Clint Johnson was a teammate of mine. So it's like, I know these guys. But doing what we do, and for as long as we've done it, it's not so much about, these names or what they've done in the past or what their potential could be. It's really about harnessing what is in the now, and how do I get the most out of you right now, and how do you get the most out of yourself, and how do you come to this team where we are all coming together with like pure intentions and clear goals of, hey, we want to be the best in the world at this. And it's not easy to do when there's just call it what it is, some selfish players on that team and selfish intentions. And Jesse's also on that team, ex-teammate, one of my really close friends, can't leave him out. But you're just going to have a really mixed bag with desires and expectations when you bring together a group like that under the circumstances that they've been brought together. And it's not like a jab to any one of these guys. It's just, I'm calling it how I see it. And it's not only me who's calling it how it's being seen. And the words of advice to it, it's really tough to diagnose, or like, I guess, have the remedy to this diagnosis. It's not easy to say, hey, our culture's messed up here. What do we do to fix it? It's not like anyone's going to come in with a speech or a conversation to be like, okay, get together, boys, open up a 6-pack. We're going to the fire. We're going to go have a story time. It's like, that probably would be the best thing to help them, honestly.
That would probably work, right? Like, they should do that.
Could be a good scenario. But it's, you're watching some of the best players in the world being in this situation, and they're trying to figure it out. There's been a lot of turnover over there. And it's definitely one of those things where, each event is like a checkpoint to see if we figured it out. And that's for all teams. And some checkpoints are different. Some checkpoints are like, you show up to the event and we're at the stage where we have to win. Sometimes you're on a team where you're showing up to the event and it's like, okay, we just need to win a match. We just need to win to get to Sunday. And then once we're on Sunday, it's like, these are all, we're in green. We're good. We're profitable. I don't care what the profit is, but we made it and we're happy. So with them, they're working on it. It's not like these guys are sitting around not watching, not learning, not playing. I mean, I know they have expectations of players to be actively playing, actively getting it going. So we'll see. But I mean, I definitely obviously going to say we're going to beat them. I mean, it's expected that we go beat them. And as rivals, they gave us a hell of a match in World Cup, knocking us out when they're already out. So to say that we don't still have some feelings about that, I mean, I do. I do have feelings about it. So I have every intention to go out there and beat up on my friends. And I know they have the same, mentality my way, and meet you at the 50, bitch.
Yeah, no, it's just, I don't know. We talk. I'm just bringing up almost every show with everybody because it is the biggest mystery in pro
It's
paintball
definitely
right
the
now.
talk of the
It's a
league.
mystery. It's a mystery. Yeah, we've all been doing this a long ass time. Like, again, yeah, dude, I am old. Look at my beard, but
Whenever there's a car
I
accident,
do
everybody
think,
wants to look at it and figure it out, So
yeah,
it's not it's just unfortunate. It's with guys that we all really like, and you're like, oh, what the hell is going on over here? But
yeah. I mean, it's just I do expect them. To me, if I was Mark or Ryan, the owner and coach of the team, I'd say, look, I would, yeah, let's win one of these next events. That would be great. But ideally, I would love to go into 2025 not being in tier 4 or 5. Like let's get a
yeah,
realistic goal here. It's like when you talk to, because I think they kind of need to go back to that, because if they have the expectation, I think that might actually help. Because if the expectation is to go to win the event, which by their roster they should be contending for wins, but that extra pressure sometimes, for whatever reason, starts
yeah. I mean,
holding
it's
actual
funny we talked
performance.
about pressure
You know,
earlier in the pod. I mean, individual pressure is far different than team pressure. I mean, you don't want like every single thing you do be weighted 10x because of the situation you're in. You're not going to be able to play
yeah,
free. You're not going to be able to play to the caliber of yourself or collectively as your team. And you see that. I mean, I was listening to the podcast with Ryan somewhere where they're discussing holding Mouse up to develop him as a 2. I think that is absolutely the wrong idea to go with this, but that's my only tip. I don't think that's the move. I don't think you get one of the world's most talented ones and groom them to being a 2. I think you pay the guy to go be a killer, and you get the rest of the team to understand how to make that work in the, how to tie that into what we can do with our team. Not let's take the one thing we know that's constant, our one constant. We're gonna take him out and we're gonna put him in the back, and then we're gonna try and put these other guys in positions that they're just not as elite in. Not to say that these guys aren't elite in their positions, but you have Mouse on the team. Put Mouse in the snake. Put Mouse in the kill spot. Get a good guy behind him. Work it out from there. However, whatever, doesn't matter. But let's not change our concrete stud.
well, to your point, Meter, look at Legion, Red Legion. So, okay, they got Malloy, Alexander Burnikoff on the team. What do they do with him? Are they like, he's too valuable to die? Let's just have him start in the back center. We'll put him in the back corner. He's fast enough to get out there, put him in insert spot, and then he'll work his way in there. No, dude, they're sending him to Snake 2 off that. Look at the last event. Like, he's going like outside the back corner up into Snake 2 off the break. He's running to the wedge. He's at the 50.
Have the conversation
every single
like
point.
If you're on
every point.
Yeah. If you're on that team though, and you're Malloy, and you guys come up with this strategy where it's like, okay, we all want to play aggressive. We all want to, we're going to change the pace. We're going to blah, 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 do all this. You look at your roster and you're like, okay, well, we don't have Smotrov, but even if they did have Smotrov as the 1, or whoever they did have as the 1, you're going to make Malloy play a 2 or 3 with J-Rab and Kirill and Sergey. And, it's like, we've seen that before. It's not that it's bad, but why don't we put our really touted player in the shit where he's going to be in gunfight after gunfight against guys who are just not as savvy as he is? I mean, that's like, honestly, you're seeing not that there was a down trend. I mean, last year for the Russians was brutal, but you're seeing a revitalization of Borinikov, and you're seeing like a Borinikov of 2007, like present day. I mean, it's pretty impressive, and I look at everything, and I try to take pages from everyone's play or mentality, and it's something that I'm trying to implement into my game as well, being a more aggressive player. When I play aggressive, things go well. So I mean, it's just no question, like, put your talented guys in the shit.
Well, I mean, I would agree with you, bro, because I've seen every professional point you've played, and when you are, especially as the 2 now, and again, layout contingent, but when you are thinking offense and you are right next to your 1 and you're really trying to put it together and pushing the issue, and this is kind of one of those questions because we're seeing this with, like, look at J-Rab. J-Rab was, I mean, talk about lights out. Dude was on fire at the last 2 events, and he was playing on the razor's edge. He's up and over the top of the spots. I mean, he's just playing like, hey, put me in. Like, I'm just begging dudes to put him in. Yeah, shoot at me so I know where you are. I'm going to dodge that ball. I'm going to go back and I'm going to blow your front dude's head off, and I'm going to finish this point. So the combo of, like, and I'm tell you, Kirill was also, like, the reason why they've won 2 events, real quick breakdown, Karslev, unbelievable on that D side. Constantly a threat. You have to worry about him. He'll be at the 50 if you head check too much towards Malloy. And then Sergey, he's a monster gunfighter, great on the finish. Kirill was shooting tons of bodies off that D side, running up to that Aztec, particularly in that last game against Shock. And then Malloy and J-Rab were playing some of the best paintball I've ever seen him play in a career where, for the past 20 years, those dudes have been just, God's gift to the game. So, yeah, hard to stop. Again, rest of the league, 0-18 against Legion because they're playing offense. They're playing confident. You got J-Rab literally standing over the top of bunkers, begging people to shoot at him. Like, it's impressive. So when I look at your game and when I see you play really well, that's what it looks like, So, when you're not playing tentative, you're not worried necessarily about survivability because you're believing it. Now, that's not something I would want a D3 player to do or even a semi-pro player to do. But when you're playing well, because you have that capability, letting the beast out to eat is pretty crucial when you have beasts that actually can, be that alpha predator, the top of the food chain. And so when I talk to guys like you, that when they're on our top of the food chain, I would say, hey man, you got to believe in yourself and your abilities here, because if you can't do that and J-Rab and Malloy are doing that, we're not going to beat that team. It's not going to happen because you're going to be tucked in your spot while J-Rab is just turning over the top, playing the same position you're playing and clipping hoppers, seeing the field in front of him, not being put in because everyone's playing tentative against him. And he's going to get into a good position. Malloy also is just, a juggernaut up in there, just snap shooting out and making crazy ass moves. So, it's kind of one of those things. The last team is Notorious. Well, real quick, what do you, just before the last couple questions, before we sign off, what are your thoughts on the over-the-top move? Because I keep seeing this out of guys that are really feeling it. When Archie's playing really well, he does it kind of every 2. Some of the 1s, the 3s are a little bit different if they have to transition into a 2. But that's kind of becoming part of the game again, is being omnipresent over your bunker when you're not feeling pressure. It's incredibly risky. Yeah. They definitely die doing it. But it's that razor's edge between the elite performance to get those extra eyes downfield and those extra hoppers and seeing the move versus the extra deaths that are going to come from playing that on that edge. And you play that role, and you do that sometimes too. Talk to me about that, because there's got to be if you're down in the divisionals or the semi-pro and you're watching this and you're not thinking about that, you are not doing everything you possibly could do to potentially win tournaments. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, what's going on right now in the state of the game, and you brought up 2 perfect names because they're both having different results from it, but right now, if you're playing down low and tight, you're just straight up not seeing the field. Like, you're just not seeing the fills. You're just not going to see it, because right now we've been playing layouts where you don't have clear visibility on either side. So a lot of it is, hopefully you saw a guy flash out on the break, but after that, there's a huge window of time where people can go like up and over, do L routes or do whatever and get to a spot that you just physically can't see. Over the top, you can get a glimpse of it, but it's not even a guarantee. But you still have more field awareness of what's going on, how far they went on the Dorito side, or any of these pretty critical, you know, little piece of information that you're just going to subconsciously gather from your peripherals. When you're down low, you have no peripheral vision, and it's really relying on people seeing stuff, but a lot of people don't see anything right now. So to go back with Archie and J-Rab, when Russian Legion is going into these really far spots and they're sending guys, I mean, they're sending threats pretty much point to point to point, and they're coming in like different waves or different acts, so to speak. So the first event, you'd have Kirill go up to that pin, shoot towards the snake side, kill a guy. Well, that opens it up. And it also helps the Dorito side get to a spot where now they have control. So no one's coming out to the snake side. So even if you want snake on the break, your two on the snake side's dead. And so now there's just one in the snake, and they went snake as well, or they're shortly going to be there. So now it's going to be a 2-on-1 on the snake side. Dorito side's not going to let anybody fill over to the snake side. So now it's a 2-on-1 where it's a ticking time bomb. That guy is going to die. Now they have completed the full snake side of the field with the move of Kirill going up and shooting a guy with their Dorito guy, keeping the zone covered. And now you have Brinikov and J-Rab just going hard, doesn't matter. They're just, coming down because it's simple math, 2-on-1. Even if you take the trade, I now have the side to myself. With that logic, J-Rab's able to play over the top because there's a guy off the field. My guy, or his guy, Malloy, is way in front of him. So now anyone who's still alive has to play Malloy rather than play and shoot at J-Rab. So J-Rab has like a little bit of a decoy where he has more confidence to play over the top and have more freedom to do so. And he's of mind to understand that he can affect the other side of the field by playing over the top from where he's at, bunker before the snake, or in the snake corner, wherever he is. He understands that he can apply pressure. And the fact is, applying pressure is how we get kills in paintball in the pro level. I mean, you're not always going to have just a simple gunfight these days. So that's what has afforded him the comfortability, and not to mention the confidence to do so. But there is a mechanical reason why he's able to do it so effectively. And then Archie, I mean, it's not any disrespect to Archie or anything, but I know whenever I'm playing against Archie, I'm always trying to shoot over top of the bunker. I just know his tendencies. I know he wants to have visibility. The more visibility and understanding he has of the field, the better decisions he's going to make. And he's a hyper critical thinker. So I just know what he wants. He wants to see. He'll even jump to see. But when he doesn't have a one in front of him, or if he is the one, he doesn't have all the spacing that J-Rab has with Brinikov, pretty much 20, 30 feet ahead of him, also just causing chaos. Brinikov's not getting into a spot to just get there and not pop his head up. He's coming up, gun in hand, coming out, shooting. Yeah, he's looking to engage. So when you're the opposition to that, you need all focus to be on him for the most part, because if you don't, and you wrap and you give a little bit to see where the two is, J-Rab in this situation, well, Malloy is already in your face because he either shot you or he crawled down onto your side and then shot you from a lateral position. And that's just kind of the breakdown. And to implement that into your style or gameplay as a divisional guy, or really anybody, it's tricky because you're the hero. If you catch something, you catch a move and you can communicate that, and we don't get punished by a player making a move. But if you get caught and you get shot, and now it's just you're one in the snake unprotected and he gets run down and you didn't have to do that, then you're kind of the fool. So picking and choosing this and kind of trying to have a strategy with it is well advised.
Yeah. No, for sure. So the last team, real quick, Notorious. In your bracket, they went 0-4 at the last event. They're going to get some of their starters back. Another Texas squad. What's your quick thoughts on Notorious here?
They are pretty chaotic team, and we practice them. We know their guys pretty well, but at events, I feel like they play
So that's good for you.
pretty well.
Just real quick, that's really good for you though, because if you practice them on a regular basis and you draw them in the prelims, and it's like big brother little brother situation, that almost always works out for the big brother. I mean, for the little brother, you're like, okay, well, I'm not scared of these guys because we play them all the time. But also, if then the back of your brain's like, yeah, but they beat us all the time too, and you're like, God damn it, So
Yeah,
that's
I mean, it can be
always a good thing
tricky.
for you guys.
Yeah, when you're the little brother, because I've been the little brother, it's tricky because you don't want to start playing a game to avoid tendencies that big brother knows. Like you just got to play it straight up. You just got to play it the way you're going to play it. And I mean, that's my advice. But with them, I mean, I feel like they do rise to the occasion at events. More than they do at practice. I mean, they definitely, Marky Franz, I've seen him play pretty well. ABJ and Michael Johnson, these guys are threats for their team, and they're working hard. So it's not, and they're young in the game at least. And when you're playing against guys like that, I mean, there's going to be evolutions to their game, and you never know when they're going to break the seal of like that next chapter of their skill level. So, I'm confident going into that game, but I'm definitely not sleeping on them. I don't want to give them the benefit of, oh yeah, we beat them up at practice all the time. Like I know at events they perform better, so I don't think that they're the practice team that we beat up. I think they're going to be, it'd be like playing the Bears or someone like that. It's like, hey, just don't give these guys anything. And, let's play a lot of points. Let's play a lot of points and we'll run it up. But if we find ourselves in a slow game, it's just not the way to play it. It's too many variables come into play.
ABJ is so Archie Barnes Jr. He's been one of the fun players to really watch. I'm hoping he's going to be there. He wasn't at the last one. Johnson's good too. I just with them, it's like in some of these younger teams, who's actually going to be at the event. But ABJ is one of those guys chaotic. That's also kind of they're super chaotic. But just, and this is what, because you've been in this situation before. Look, Notorious sitting at 18th place right now. New York Extreme, one of the fascinating stories is going to happen the next two events. They're on the precipice of potentially getting relegated after being top 4 last year. So that's going to be a crazy story to watch. Crazy. Uprising is in there too. They picked up Nate Schrader, so that's going to be a cool story. But Notorious, they need a good performance after having gone 0-4 at the last event, taking second to last. But with ABJ, I mean, obviously, look, it's good to stay with the boys, but he's good enough that if, depending on, I don't know where his head's at, but if ABJ rolls up, because I've had conversations with some pro teams, pro coaches, like a top.
Oh, he's going to be somewhere. He's going to.
That's my point, right? Yeah. So I've had maybe say top 10. I've had top coaches, conversations with coaches, top 10, where I'm like, okay, no cameras around. I'm just asking them, not going to mention their names right now, but I'm like, all right, well, let's just say you got ABJ there instead of who you got right now. You guys better off or worse off here at this event? They're like, oh, for sure, better off. So ABJ is on a bit of a tryout for the next two events. And it's up to Notorious to try to keep him because, and this is just dude, if you're a team in the bottom at least 5 and you got a dude who's like on the level of a top tier, first attacker, well, you better do everything you can to keep that guy in the squad. Welcome to how the game is played in the offseason as well, too. That's part of it. You got to keep your roster solid.
Yeah.
But ABJ is definitely going to be on a tryout for the next two events because if Archie Barnes Jr. goes off at the next two events in Chicago and World Cup, well, he could possibly be getting paid, money, and he's got kids. So, that's, something he's going to have to figure out. And I don't know where his head's at, but he's that good when he's on. And then Johnson's been good. They are a wild card. Notorious is fun to watch because they're a wild card. So last question here, Meter, before I let you go. Well, what do you think? I mean, just give me your thoughts on ABJ in that situation, because you were that guy. Again, when we went, if you got, tuning in at the beginning of the show, it's like, okay, you're on this team, and then you're on this team. And I didn't even talk about your divisional story either. It was just pro teams. But you were like, I got to go here. I got to go there. I got to go here. I got to go here. Okay, I got to go here. And then now X Factor for years and years and years, super solid. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that adventure for Archie Barnes Jr. right now?
I don't know him very well. I like what I see. He seems like a nice guy, and he's passionate about the game. And hey, that's enough for me to like you, But I definitely feel like, again, this is me not knowing him, but if you want to play at a high
you've
level
been there.
and you want to really,
you've
been there,
you
really
bro.
want to take this,
then
you're gonna have to go.
You've been on that same journey.
You have to go somewhere. You just have to. I mean, you're in a really there's no stability with this program, unfortunately. Wish there was. I wish, you guys had a solid coach. I wish you guys could keep the same faces around. But that's not the case. So to go full circle here, you have time, and that's all you have. And I don't know how much time you have. I don't know anything. I know you have kids. I know they're a major priority to you. I know the game's a major priority to you. So Archie, you got to figure out, how far do you want to take this? What does Archie Barnes Jr. want to be, and what to receive from this game? And that these are just, you answer that, you're going to figure out where you want to be, because it's going to be, this is harsh, but it's going to be anywhere but your current situation. You need to be somewhere where it's stable, where you can continue to grow as a player, as a competitor. Hopefully be in a spot where people can, help you get to these next steps of the game, not just show up and be like, oh, well, go be a one over here. I feel like you really should be in a place where people are going to, help develop you. Cause it's not like you're going to be thrown in the back, you're not going to be in a 2 role. Wherever you go, you're going to be a 1. It's your comfort spot, but having good support around you is critical. And these are things I would be thinking about if I was in his shoes.
So, Meter, last question before I let you go. What is the fundamental nature of the universe? No, I'm just kidding, bro. I'm just kidding. There's no way we have time for that. There's no way we have time for that. If you got me like a 10-word answer, then we could go with that. But I just, seeing on how we normally get on that crazy level, I just figured that the last thing I'd say to you would be some Oliver Lang stuff before we signed off.
Yeah, it's growth. It's adaptation, perseverance, destruction, and hopefully regrooth. And then somebody can break that down however they want. Dude. But I feel like that's like a 5-word bar that can take you, that can take you pretty far if you think about it.
Yeah, that was a hell of a. Again, I thought you would just be like, "Hey, bro, that's for the long conversation. I'll see you next time. We'll talk about that. Next time I see you." Nah. That was a really good quick answer for that. Yeah. Now, Meter's
all
intellectual.
Represented.
Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you, brother. Best of luck at this next one. It has been really fun to watch your career, and you still got a lot left. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because I was like, man, I just feel like X Factor got a little bit of a bad shake story-wise this year because you guys took that second place. We go right into the next event. You didn't have the finish that you guys wanted to have, but again, just like as we've been discussing, I look at the roster, I look at the support, the ownership, the leadership. I'm like, man, there's no way if they keep this team together that this is not going to be, and it already is a top team. You guys are, top 3. But I know you guys, it's all about getting that next win. So everyone look out for San Antonio X Factor. Next event coming up September 13th through the 15th, 4th event. Meter, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate your time. You teaching any clinics? I know you got the Astra hat on. Any last shout outs to what you got going on before we sign off?
No clinics, but shout out to the sponsor. Shout out to Alex Martinez, Planet Eclipse, JT Paintball, Astra Project. And one last thing, you know, is it that we're getting overshadowed, or is the bar just being raised as to what excellence and people should be talking about is, you know? I mean, I definitely appreciate the highlight, but from my point of view, it's just like shit, man. I mean, yeah, Dynasty go on a real run, and now you're having Russian Legion implement real strategy, and going into 2025, people are going to have to adjust to that, where people are going to have to be playing more paintball. These guys are playing like 5 days a week. I don't know how many weeks they're doing that, but I mean, the meta is shifting. Playing more paintball seems to be rewarding people. But that's about all I got. I love being here and I love talking to you. So thank you so much.
Appreciate you, brother. Well, hey, we had J-Rab on and we had Ryan on, Greenspan. So I'm glad we got the third ranked team here again, as we are drawing closer to the next big event. It's always a fun time here in Pro Paintball. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Meter, peace.
Change, yeah.